Representatives moves to impeach the outgoing president. And Kaizer Chiefs have ended their 7-match winless run with a 1-0 win over Amazulu at Kings Park Stadium.
On the stroke of 10 minutes, here's
While the U.S. House of Representatives is holding a vote to impeach President Donald Trump over his role in last week's riots at Capitol Hill, Democrats accuse the president of encouraging his supporters to attack the Capitol building where 5 people died. Some members of the Republican Party say they'll join the Democrats to impeach him today. For more on this story, we're joined by Dr. Dinesh Sharma, who is a Chief Research Officer at Steamworks. Dr. Sharma, good evening and thank you so much for your time. Certainly, the backlash from the scenes that we saw last week seems to have gained momentum, ultimately bringing us to this moment today. Why is it so important?
Frozen. I'm sorry. Hello?
It looks like, unfortunately, it looks like we don't have a great connection to Dr. Dinesh Sharma. All right, we'll try and bring him back up on a much more stable line. For now, let's continue here. The BBC is reporting that the COVID-19 pandemic has caused deaths in the UK to rise to their highest levels since World War II. Leaving out December numbers, there were 697,000 deaths in the country last year. This is 85,000 more than would be expected using yearly forecasts. Officially, more than 83,000 lives have been claimed by the coronavirus in the UK. The last time such a large percentage of additional deaths above the norm was recorded was during the war. According to one psychiatrist in the UK, nurses at various hospitals have reported distress due to the rising number of hospital admissions, with some leading to deaths. The country's health department is now considering a pilot scheme for 24-hour vaccinations. All right, so while we try and work on that line with Dr. Dinesh Sharma, let's take you back to the House of Representatives. This is where the debate is underway over the insurrection of U.S. President Donald Trump for inciting the violence that led to the protests at Capitol Hill.
Democracy in keeping with the Constitution? Were his words an insurrectionary mob a high crime and misdemeanor? Do we not have the duty to our oath to do all we constitutionally can to protect our nation and our democracy from the appetites and ambitions of a man who has self-evidently demonstrated that he is a vital threat to liberty, to self-government, and to the rule of law? Our country is divided, we all know that. There are lies abroad in the land spread by a desperate president who feels his power slipping away. We know that too. But I know this as well, that we here in this House have a sacred obligation to stand for truth, to stand up for the Constitution, to stand as guardians of the Republic. In a speech he was prepared to give in Dallas on Friday, November 22nd, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was to say, "We in this country, in this generation, are, by destiny rather than choice, the watchmen on the walls of world freedom. We ask, therefore, that we may be worthy of our power and responsibility." That we may be worthy. President Kennedy was assassinated before he could deliver those words to the nation, but they resonate more even now, in our time, in this place. Let us be worthy of our power and responsibility, that what Lincoln thought was the world's last best hope, the United States of America, may long...
All right, the Speaker of the House there, Nancy Pelosi, setting the context for this debate. Dr. Dinesh Sharma is a Chief Research Officer at Steamworks. Dr. Sharma, hopefully you can hear me better this time around. Let's speak about the significance of this moment.
Yeah, I think we're looking at potentially, a kind of a low-grade civil war here, um, because the insurrection, the evidence shows, was caused by, forces that have been organizing for some time.
Mm.
And now even Mitch McConnell is suggesting that an impeachment is likely. Um, and he's kind of marshaling his troops, it seems like, behind the scenes, even in the Senate. So the House will vote for impeachment, and it'll go to the Senate, probably around the same time as Mr. Biden is getting inaugurated. And then the Democrats have the slight majority in the Senate, and they might be able to impeach Mr. Trump, because we have a few senators like Romney, Collins, Murkowski, McConnell, Sass, who've been openly criticizing the president. And, it appears that this was fairly well organized
Mm.
and may have had some hand from, current Congress people on the Republican side. Again, the evidence is still coming out.
Yeah. You're using a very strong description there, a low-grade civil war. Unpack that a bit further for me. What
Well,
about the
we could say,
information?
yeah, I think when you and I spoke several times ago, we said this was like a slow-moving coup that's been taking place when Mr. Trump has been challenging the election results for the last 2 months. Some 60 cases have been presented to local district courts, and all of the cases except one maybe have been thrown out, including the rejection by the Supreme Court, 9-0. But Mr. Trump is still not conceding, and he's behind the scenes calling out his base to violently reject the outcome. And that's why we're here. And the media has been saying this, has been covering it. Of course, now, as you know, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube is banning Mr. Trump from appearing on their channels. So we're looking at a very dire situation, I think, potentially.
Let's talk then about how the processes that unfold in terms of the impeachment, what effect that they're going to have at all when it comes to the inauguration of Joe Biden next week. Do you think that they will overshadow some of those events around the incoming president?
Yeah, I think they've already overshadowed, the siege, the sacking of the Capitol building has completely overshadowed the transition. So so structurally there are a couple of things that have happened. The military has clearly said that they're not going to get involved in any type of action that Mr. Trump has been calling for. And then the transition has been delayed. And so what you have is a break in the chain of command. And then it trickles down to the local authorities, DC police, National Guard, right? So what you have then on the day of the insurrection on January 6th is chaos because the orders are not clearly transmitted. And when the call for help goes out to National Guard, it's delayed by the military, right? And the language is very clear. They're calling to hang the vice president for not backing Mr. Trump. And they're looking for the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. And this is all on tape, so you can't deny it. The first impeachment, you could say, oh, we don't know what the evidence is because we didn't hear it. In this case, the evidence is on the tape. So you can't deny what is on tape. Everybody's seen it, and Congress people and senators were there. And the indictment is very clear. It's a 4-page document as you're projecting it. It's very easy to understand. And it basically implicates the president in inciting an insurrection and a coup against the United States government.
Dr. Dinesh, what is going to be the impact of all these events on the Republican Party in particular?
Yeah, I think the party is now at this point splintering. So there are factions within the party that completely want to purge, it seems from Mitch McConnell's language. Mr. Trump. And then there are factions, the base, I would say, that's at least still sticking with the president for the next week or so, and then we'll see what happens after that. So there's clearly a civil war breaking out within the Republican Party itself, and factions then will determine the future of the party. It remains to be seen who will emerge as the leader, but I would say that if Mr. Trump holds on to power and is not indicted in the Senate, then the evidence suggests that he may run in 2024, and that bodes ill for the country, because we're looking at a potential, decade that's going to be very fractious, because the country is divided, 50-50.
Is that why the Democrats are pushing ahead with this process of impeachment? I mean, despite the fact that, he won't be in office at the end of this month.
Yeah, I think they're trying to set a precedence that you cannot do this. You cannot, raise an insurrection against a sitting government, try to decapitate the Speaker of the House and the Vice President, basically the chain of command. And of course, the data will come out. Again, we don't know, we don't have all the facts yet, but that's what has been attempted here. And if you let this go by without any consequences, this will be repeated again, as it happens in other autocratic authoritarian societies.
Dr. Dinesh Sharma, let me thank you so much for your time tonight on News at Prime.